The demolition crew arrives at dawn. From my hotel window 3 blocks away, I watch the sunrise paint his $1 million estate in shades of gold and crimson. In exactly 4 hours, Marcus will return from his Las Vegas trip with her, expecting to walk into the marble foyer where he proposed 7 years ago. Instead, he'll find rubble. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My coffee tastes like victory. Mrs. Chen, my attorney's voice crackles through the phone. The final permits cleared at midnight. The structural team confirms the house is entirely in your name. Are you absolutely certain about this? I don't hesitate. Tear it down, David. Every brick, every beam, every reminder that I was ever naive enough to love a man who called me a corpse at 42. The words still echo in my mind from 3 weeks ago. Dead to me. You're old, bitter, and dead to me. Marcus had said it casually, laughing with Whitney, his 26-year-old assistant, as I stood in the doorway of our bedroom holding his dry cleaning. He hadn't even noticed me there, too busy showing her the vacation photos on his phone, planning their getaway with my money. My money. That's the part Marcus never understood. Before I met him, I was Elena Chen, the daughter of immigrants who built a small tech consulting firm in their garage. After they died in a car accident my senior year of college, I inherited nothing but debt and determination. I spent 15 years turning that dying dream into Sentinel Solutions, a cybersecurity empire worth $43 million. I owned it through a web of LLCs and trusts. Learned that lesson after my first marriage ended with my ex trying to claim half of something he'd never touched. Marcus knew me as Elena, the quiet wife who worked from home doing freelance IT stuff. He never asked questions when money appeared. Never wondered how we afforded the lifestyle. He simply took what I gave and assumed he'd earned it through his pharmaceutical sales job that barely cleared 6 figures. The house was my monument to survival. 4,000 square feet of custom architecture on 3 acres of prime real estate in Ridgemont Heights, the most exclusive neighborhood in the state. I'd designed every detail myself: the infinity pool that overlooked the valley, the library with floor-to-ceiling windows, the master suite where Marcus had just called me dead. Now I'd make it a tomb. My phone buzzes. A text from my sister, Lisa. Are you really doing this? Mom and Dad would... I don't finish reading. Mom and Dad taught me that respect is earned, not demanded. They would understand. The demolition foreman, a weathered man named Rodriguez, had looked at me strangely when I first approached his company. Ma'am, this is a beautiful home. Are you sure there's not another way? I am very sure, I'd replied, sliding him a check for double his usual rate. I want it done fast, done thoroughly, and done legally. Can you make that happen? He could. And he did. I'd spent 3 weeks preparing. First, I removed everything I valued: my parents' photographs, my grandmother's jewelry, the first computer I'd ever built. Then I documented everything: every permit, every inspection, every legal notification. Marcus would find no grounds to sue, no way to claim I'd acted irrationally or illegally. The house was solely in my name, purchased 3 years before I met him with money from a particularly lucrative contract. I'd added him to the deed after our wedding, then quietly removed him last year when I first suspected his affair. The paperwork for that had been interesting. My attorney had raised an eyebrow. This is unusual, Mrs. Chen. Most people do this during a divorce. Consider it preventive maintenance, I'd said. I'd also hired a private investigator 6 months ago when Marcus started coming home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. The investigator, a sharp woman named Torres, had been worth every penny of her $15,000 retainer. "Your husband is having an affair with Whitney Pierce," she'd reported in our first meeting, sliding photographs across her desk. "Age 26. Employed as his sales assistant for 8 months. They meet Tuesday and Thursday afternoons at the Grandview Hotel. He's also been transferring money from your joint account, small amounts, 500 here, 1,000 there, into a separate account you're not listed on. The joint account that I funded entirely." "What's the total?" I'd asked calmly. "47,000 so far." I'd smiled then, the same smile I wear now as I watch the demolition crew unload their equipment. $47,000. Marcus had stolen almost $50,000 from me to fund his affair, and he thought I wouldn't notice. The part that hurt most wasn't the affair itself. People fall out of love. I understood that intellectually. What destroyed me was the cruelty. The casual dismissal of 7 years together, the mockery of my age, the way he'd looked at Whitney with the same wonder he'd once shown me. But worse than all of that was what Torres discovered in week 3 of her investigation. "There's something else," she'd said, her expression grim. "Marcus isn't just having an affair. He's planning to leave you, but not before he sets himself up. He's been meeting with a lawyer, trying to figure out how to claim half of everything in a divorce. He thinks because you've been married 7 years, he's entitled to your business assets." My blood had run cold. He doesn't even know about Sentinel Solutions. He does now. The lawyer he's consulting specializes in high-asset divorces. They've been digging into your finances, trying to pierce the corporate veil. They're building a case that you've been hiding assets throughout the marriage. That was when I knew mercy was no longer an option. I'd built my entire life on being invisible, on protecting what I'd created from people who would take it. Marcus had seemed different when we met at that hospital fundraiser. He'd approached me at the bar, not knowing who I was, just seeing a woman alone nursing a glass of wine. "You look like you're having about as much fun as I am," he'd said, his smile warm and genuine. "Marcus Bradford. I'm here because my company made me come." "You?" "Elena," I'd replied. "Similar story. Required appearance." We'd talked for hours about nothing important. Movies, travel, the best pizza in the city. He'd made me laugh for the first time in months. When he asked for my number, I'd given it without hesitation. Our first year together felt like a fairy tale. He'd been attentive, thoughtful, present in ways my ex-husband never was. When his apartment lease ended, I'd suggested he move into my house. When he'd proposed on the beach in Maui, I'd said yes without thinking twice. The wedding was small, just family and a few friends. Lisa had pulled me aside before the ceremony. "Are you sure about this? You barely know him." "I know enough," I'd said. "He makes me happy." "But does he know about—" "No," I'd interrupted. "And he doesn't need to. That's separate from us." That separation had seemed wise at the time. Now it was my salvation. The first crack in our marriage appeared 2 years in. Marcus had lost a major client at work, and his mood darkened. He started making comments about money, how we never seemed to worry about it, how I must have family money I wasn't sharing. "I work hard," I'd said simply. "Freelance consulting pays well." "Pays this well?" He'd gestured around our home, at the original artwork, the custom furniture. Elena, a freelancer doesn't make this kind of money. The right kind does. He'd dropped it then, but the seed of resentment had been planted. Over the next 5 years, I watched it grow. He started spending more, as if trying to prove he contributed equally. New cars, expensive watches, lavish gifts for me that I never asked for. All purchased on credit cards I paid off each month without comment. The affair probably started a year ago, though I only confirmed it 6 months back. Marcus began traveling more for work, taking calls in other rooms, guarding his phone like it contained state secrets. The classic signs. I'd been through this before with my first husband. I recognized the pattern. But unlike with James, I didn't immediately confront Marcus. Instead, I watched. I documented. I prepared. The legal work took months. My attorney, David Park, had been handling my business affairs for a decade. When I first explained what I wanted to do, he'd sat back in his leather chair and studied me. Elena, I've known you a long time. This isn't like you. What isn't like me? Vengeance. You're usually so measured, so careful. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I'd leaned forward. David, my husband is stealing from me, cheating on me, and planning to take half of everything I've built. He called me old and dead to him. He doesn't know who I really am, what I really own, and he's actively trying to destroy me. This isn't vengeance. This is self-defense. David had nodded slowly. Then let's make sure we do it right. Right meant ensuring every asset was protected, every business entity shielded, every piece of property clearly documented as separate property. It meant gathering evidence of Marcus's theft, his affair, his plans. It meant preparing for the inevitable divorce with the thoroughness I'd applied to building my business. And it meant deciding what to do about the house. The house that Marcus loved more than he'd ever loved me. The house where he'd brought Whitney at least 6 times according to Torres's surveillance, the two of them laughing in my bed, drinking my wine, planning their future in my home. That was when the idea first occurred to me. Why give him the satisfaction of living in this house without me? Why let him walk away with memories intact, with some measure of dignity? Why not turn our home into a metaphor? I'd spent 3 sleepless nights researching demolition companies, reviewing property laws, consulting with David about the legal implications. The conclusion was clear. The house was mine to do with as I pleased. Marcus had no legal claim to it, no ability to stop me. But Elena, David had cautioned, this will seem extreme. A judge might view this as what? As a woman exercising her legal rights over her own property? David, I'm not destroying anything that belongs to him. I'm not breaking any laws. I'm simply choosing to demolish a house I own because I no longer want it to exist. It's going to cost you at least $200,000 in demolition and cleanup. I have $43 million, I'd replied. I think I can afford to make a point. Now, watching Rodriguez's crew set up their equipment, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The point needed to be made. My phone rings. It's David. The final walkthrough is complete, he says. All utilities disconnected, all permits in place. The demolition can proceed. But Elena, I have to ask one more time. Are you absolutely certain? I watch the first excavator move into position, its mechanical arm extending toward the east wing of the house, toward the bedroom where Marcus had killed our marriage with 5 words. Bring it down, I say. The first impact sounds like thunder. The excavator's claw tears into the roof, and I watch tiles slide and scatter. The noise echoes across the neighborhood, and I see lights flicking on in nearby homes. Let them watch. Let them see what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. My phone explodes with texts. Neighbors asking what's happening. Friends who'd visited the house wondering if I'm okay. Lisa calling repeatedly. I ignore them all. There's only one call I'm waiting for, and it comes at 7:47 a.m. Elena. Marcus's voice is strained, panicked. What the hell is going on? Mrs. Patterson just called me screaming about our house. She says there are demolition crews, that they're... Elena, tell me this is a mistake. I let the silence stretch for a long moment, listening to the sound of our home being torn apart in the background of his confusion. It's not a mistake, Marcus. What are you talking about? Where are you? What's happening? I'm watching our house come down. Well, my house, technically. It was always my house. Elena, you can't just... This is insane. Stop them right now. I don't think I will. This is our home. His voice cracks. 7 years of our life. You can't just destroy it because you're upset I went to Vegas for the weekend. Oh, Marcus. I take a sip of coffee, savoring the moment. This has nothing to do with Vegas. This has everything to do with Whitney Pierce, the Grandview Hotel, the $47,000 you've stolen, and your plan to take half of my business in the divorce you've been planning for 6 months. The silence on his end is absolute. That's right. I continue. I know everything. The affair, the secret account, the lawyer who specializes in high-asset divorces. I know you called me old and dead to you. I know you've been bringing her into my house, into my bed. I know exactly who you are, Marcus, and I've decided I don't want any reminders of that person in my life. Elena, please. The house is in my name only. I had your name removed from the deed 14 months ago. Everything in it either belonged to me before we married or was purchased with my money. You have no legal right to stop this. And even if you did, you're in Vegas, and the house will be rubble in about 4 hours. You're insane, he hisses. You're actually insane. No, Marcus, I'm just done being dead to you. I hang up and block his number. The demolition takes on a rhythm. Crash, rumble, the sound of memories being pulverized. The east wing goes first, then the north. By 9 a.m., half the house is gone. Neighbors have gathered at the property line, watching in horror and fascination. Someone has called the police, but Rodriguez has all the permits displayed prominently. There's nothing anyone can do but watch. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Whitney. How could you do this to him? He loved that house. You're destroying his life out of spite. This is abuse. I almost laugh. Instead, I type back, the house was mine. He destroyed his own life. Enjoy your $47,000. I block that number too. By noon, the house is completely gone. Nothing remains but broken concrete, splintered wood, and a massive pile of debris. Rodriguez approaches my hotel room. I'd given him the address earlier. It's done, Mrs. Chen, he says, looking exhausted. The cleanup crew will haul everything away over the next week. The lot will be clear by this time next month. Thank you, Rodriguez. You've been very professional. Can I ask you something? He hesitates. Why? That was a beautiful house. It was also full of lies, I say simply. Sometimes you have to clear the foundation before you can build something real. He nods, not quite understanding but respecting the answer. After he leaves, I finally check the messages I've been ignoring. Lisa has called 17 times. I dial her back. Elena Marie Chen, What have you done? What needed to be done? You demolished your house. Your beautiful house. Are you having a breakdown? Do I need to come get you? I'm fine, Lisa. Better than fine, actually. How is this fine? You just destroyed millions of dollars of property. I destroyed a building that represented a failed marriage and a man who used me. The property itself is worth $3 million. I'll sell the cleared lot and probably make money on the deal. But the memories. We're already ruined, I interrupt. Every good memory I had of that house was poisoned the moment Marcus brought his mistress into our bed. I'm not losing anything real, Lisa. I'm just clearing space. She's quiet for a long moment. He's been calling me. Marcus, he's frantic. Block him. Elena. He's going to try to turn everyone against me. He's going to claim I'm crazy, that I've lost control, but the truth is I've never been more in control. I have evidence of everything, the affair, the theft, his plans to take my business. When the divorce goes through, he'll be lucky to leave with the clothes on his back. You've really thought this through. I've spent 6 months thinking this through. The house was just the opening statement. We talk for another hour. Lisa is worried about me, but she's also beginning to understand. By the end of the call, she's almost impressed. You've become ruthless, she says. No, I correct her. I've stopped being invisible. That evening, I drive to the empty lot. In the fading light, the destruction looks almost beautiful. A clean slate where something rotten used to stand. I walk to the center of what used to be our living room, my heels crunching on broken concrete. This is where Marcus proposed. Down on one knee, holding a ring I later learned he'd bought on credit and never paid off. I'd been so happy that day, so certain I'd finally found someone who loved me for myself. What a fool I'd been. My phone vibrates. Another unknown number. I almost ignore it, but something makes me answer. Mrs. Chen? An unfamiliar male voice. This is Detective Harrison with the Ridgemont Police. We've had a complaint filed against you regarding the demolition of property at 2847 Woodland Heights Drive. I'd like to ask you some questions. I smile. Marcus is already trying to weaponize the system against me. Detective, I'd be happy to speak with you. However, I should inform you that the property in question was solely owned by me. All demolition was properly permitted and legally executed, and I have a complete documentation trail. Would you like me to have my attorney present these materials to you? There's a pause. You had permits? Every single one required by city, county, and state law. The demolition company I hired is fully licensed and insured. If Mr. Bradford filed a complaint, I'm afraid it's frivolous. He has no legal standing regarding that property. Another pause, longer this time. I see. Well, if everything was done legally, it was, Detective. But I appreciate your diligence. If you'd like, I can have my attorney send over all documentation by end of business tomorrow. That would be helpful, thank you. He hangs up, and I know I've won this round. Marcus is scrambling, trying to find some way to hurt me back, but he's fighting with nothing. No legal ground, no moral high ground, nothing but his own embarrassment and rage. Good. I stand in the ruins of our house until the sun sets completely. In the darkness, I make myself a promise. This is the last time I'll ever be invisible. The last time I'll let someone make me feel small or old or dead. The next morning, I wake up to find my story has gone viral. Someone, probably one of the neighbors, posted video of the demolition online. Woman demolishes $1 million home after discovering husband's affair. reads the headline on half a dozen local news sites. The comments are divided. Half call me crazy, wasteful, a scorned woman who's lost her mind. The other half call me a hero, an icon, an inspiration. I read them all over breakfast and feel nothing but satisfaction. My phone rings. It's Marcus's mother, Diane. Elena, what you've done is unforgivable. Marcus is devastated. How could you be so cruel? Diane, I say calmly, your son has been having an affair for over a year, has stolen nearly $50,000 from me, and was planning to divorce me and take half of my business. The house was always mine. I simply chose to eliminate it rather than let him enjoy it without me. He made a mistake. People make mistakes. You didn't have to destroy everything. I didn't destroy everything, Diane. I destroyed a building. Your son destroyed our marriage. There's a difference. She sputters, unable to form a coherent response, and eventually hangs up. The calls continue throughout the day. Friends of Marcus trying to shame me. A few journalists asking for interviews. My own mother's best friend calling to say she's concerned about my mental state. I ignore most of them. Let them think what they want. David calls at 3 p.m. Elena, I've been fielding calls all day. Marcus has retained an attorney, Robert Cunningham. He's good, expensive, and apparently very angry on Marcus's behalf. What's Marcus's play? He's claiming the house was a marital asset regardless of whose name was on the deed. He wants you to pay him half its value, $1.5 million. I laugh. Actually laugh. On what grounds? Emotional distress, loss of marital property, mental anguish. It's desperate and it won't work, but he's going to try. Cunningham is also suggesting Marcus should receive spousal support, given the disparity in your incomes. Spousal support. Based on the lifestyle you provided during the marriage. They're going to argue he's entitled to continue living at the same standard. Using the money he helped steal from me? They don't know about that yet. I'd like to wait to reveal that evidence until we're in court. Maximum impact. I consider this. What else? Marcus is telling everyone who'll listen that you're mentally unstable, that you've been acting erratically for months, that he's worried about your capacity to handle your own affairs. He's building a narrative. Then we counter with the truth. We release the evidence, the affair, the theft, everything. We show that my demolition of my own property was a calculated decision made by a woman who was fully aware of her rights and her husband's betrayal. That's aggressive. David, he called me dead. He brought another woman into my bed. He tried to steal my life's work. Aggressive is the only appropriate response. I'll start preparing the documentation. After we hang up, I realize I'm smiling. Marcus thinks he can win this by playing victim, by making me seem crazy. But I have something he doesn't, the truth, documented and irrefutable. That evening, I meet with Torres at a quiet restaurant downtown. She slides a thick folder across the table. Everything you asked for, she says. Call records, bank statements, hotel receipts, photographs. I've also included transcripts of some particularly interesting text messages between Marcus and Whitney. How did you get text messages? She gives me a look that says, don't ask questions you don't want answered. I flip through the folder. The evidence is damning. Messages where Marcus laughs about my freelance work, where he speculates about how much money I really have hidden away. Conversations where he and Whitney plan their future together, using my house as their home base until the divorce is finalized. One message stops me cold. She'll never see it coming. She's too trusting, too nice. By the time she realizes what's happening, I'll already have the lawyers working on getting my share. Then we can start our real life together. My share of what I built, what I earned, what I protected. Are you okay? Torres asks gently. I'm perfect, I say, closing the folder. This is exactly what I needed. Over the next week, I watch the media storm continue. The story has taken on a life of its own. Think pieces about marriage and betrayal, debates about property rights and revenge, social media polls asking if I was justified or insane. Marcus gives an interview to a local TV station, looking haggard and sympathetic. I made mistakes, he says, his eyes red. I'm not proud of them, but what Elena did was beyond vindictive. She destroyed our home, our memories, our life together, just to hurt me. That's not the woman I married. Whitney appears beside him, holding his hand. We never meant to hurt anyone, she says, her voice soft. But Elena's response was so disproportionate, so cruel. We're worried about her. I watch the interview from my hotel room and feel nothing but contempt. They've turned themselves into victims, into star-crossed lovers persecuted by a vengeful ex. Time to change that narrative. I call David. Release everything. The affair evidence, the bank records, the text messages. I want it all public by tomorrow morning. Elena, are you sure? Once this is out there, there's no taking it back. Your privacy. My privacy is already gone. Marcus made sure of that when he gave his sob story to the media. Now let's give them the full picture. The next morning, David holds a press conference. He's calm, professional, devastating. He presents evidence of Marcus's systematic theft, his year-long affair, his plan to exploit our marriage for financial gain. He shows the text messages where Marcus mocked me, where he and Whitney laughed about using me. The tide turns immediately. By noon, the same media outlets that called me crazy are calling me a survivor. Social media explodes with support. Women share their own stories of financial abuse and betrayal. Demolish the past trends on Twitter. Marcus's second interview, scheduled for that evening, is canceled. Whitney's social media goes private. Cunningham releases a terse statement saying they'll be pursuing the matter through appropriate legal channels. I watch it all unfold from my hotel room, feeling a sense of satisfaction I haven't felt in years. The truth is powerful, I remember. More powerful than any narrative Marcus could create. Lisa calls. You're everywhere. Every news site, every social media platform. People are calling you brave. I'm not brave, Lisa. I'm just done being a victim. There's a movement now. Women posting pictures of themselves demolishing things, breaking dishes, burning wedding dresses, destroying mementos from bad relationships. They're calling it the demolition movement. You started something. I hadn't intended to start anything. I just wanted to make sure Marcus understood the cost of his betrayal. But if my pain could help other women recognize their own power, maybe there was purpose in this after all. That night, I drive back to the empty lot one final time. The cleanup is nearly complete. In another week, it will just be bare earth, ready for whatever comes next. I stand where our bedroom used to be and think about the woman who lived here. Quiet, accommodating, invisible. She's gone now, demolished along with the house. In her place is someone new, someone who knows her worth, who refuses to be used, who understands that sometimes destruction is the first step toward building something better. My phone rings. It's an unknown number, but I answer anyway. Mrs. Chen? A young woman's voice, hesitant. You don't know me, But I saw your story on the news. I wanted to thank you. Thank me? My husband has been stealing from me for 3 years. Small amounts, like yours. I kept telling myself it wasn't a big deal, that I was overreacting. But watching what you did, how you refused to accept being used, it made me realize I deserve better. What are you going to do? I'm talking to a lawyer tomorrow. I'm done being invisible. We talk for a few minutes more, and after we hang up, I realize something important. Marcus didn't just lose a house. He lost control of the narrative. He lost the ability to make me small. And I gained something I'd been missing for 7 years. Myself. The divorce papers arrive the following Monday. Marcus is asking for spousal support, half the value of the demolished house, and compensation for emotional damages. His attorney has laid out an aggressive strategy based on the length of our marriage and his expectation of continued lifestyle. David and I meet in his office to review our response. We're going to destroy him, David says simply. Between the theft, the affair, and his attempts to fraudulently claim your business assets, we have more than enough to not only deny his claims, but potentially pursue criminal charges for the embezzlement. I don't want criminal charges, I say. I just want him gone. Elena, he stole $50,000, and I have $43 million. I don't need his money, David. I need my freedom. Draft a settlement offer. He walks away with nothing except what he brought into the marriage. In exchange, I won't pursue criminal charges or sue for the stolen funds. Clean break, no spousal support, no property claims. He'll never accept that. Then we go to trial, and I tell every detail of this story in open court. His choice. Marcus doesn't accept the first offer, or the second, or the third. He's convinced he deserves something, that his 7 years entitles him to a piece of what I built. We end up in court 3 months later. The courtroom is packed. Journalists, curious observers, and a surprising number of women who've told me my story inspired them. Marcus sits at his table looking smaller than I remember, less confident. Whitney isn't with him. She'd left him 2 weeks after the media firestorm, apparently not interested in a man with no money and a ruined reputation. The trial lasts 5 days. Cunningham tries to paint me as a vindictive, unstable woman who destroyed marital property out of spite. David systematically dismantles that narrative with evidence. Bank records, testimony from Torres, the text messages that show Marcus's true intentions. On the 3rd day, David calls me to the stand. Mrs. Chen, he begins, can you explain in your own words why you chose to demolish the house at 2847 Woodland Heights Drive? I look directly at Marcus. That house represented 7 years of my life with a man I thought loved me. When I discovered he'd been having an affair, stealing from me, and planning to take half of my business, a business he knew nothing about, I realized every moment we'd spent in that house was built on lies. I couldn't bear to let him continue living there, enjoying what I'd created while destroying me behind my back. So I chose to eliminate it. It was my property, purchased with my money, and I had every right to decide its fate. Some have called your actions extreme. Extreme would be letting someone steal your life's work and pretending it didn't matter. I simply chose to be clear about consequences. Cunningham objects multiple times throughout my testimony, but the judge overrules him each time. The evidence speaks for itself. On the final day, Marcus takes the stand. Cunningham tries to present him as a man who made mistakes but deserves compassion. David tears him apart. Mr. Bradford, you testified that you loved your wife. Is that correct? Yes. Yet you had an affair with your assistant for over a year. That was a mistake. A mistake you made repeatedly, hundreds of times according to hotel records. And during this mistake, did you also accidentally transfer $47,000 from your wife's account into one she wasn't aware of? Marcus shifts uncomfortably. I was going to pay it back. With what money? Your salary of $92,000? The same salary that your wife's credit cards were supplementing because you spent beyond your means? I didn't know Elena had so much money. Exactly, Mr. Bradford. You didn't know because she never told you about Sentinel Solutions, her $43 million company. Yet you hired an attorney specializing in high-asset divorces to try to claim half of assets you didn't even know existed. How do you explain that? Marcus has no good answer, none that holds up under scrutiny. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Patricia Moreno, listens to everything with an expression I can't quite read. After closing arguments, she takes less than an hour to deliberate. I've reviewed all evidence presented, she begins, and I find the following. The property at 2847 Woodland Heights Drive was purchased by Mrs. Chen prior to the marriage with funds that were clearly separate property. Mr. Bradford was added to the deed and subsequently removed, all legally. Mrs. Chen had every right to demolish her own property regardless of Mr. Bradford's objections. Marcus's face falls. Furthermore, Judge Moreno continues, the evidence of Mr. Bradford's systematic theft of marital funds, his affair, and his plans to fraudulently claim business assets he had no knowledge of or right to demonstrates a pattern of financial abuse and deception. I find no basis for spousal support, no claim to the value of the demolished property, and no merit to claims of emotional damages. She looks directly at Marcus. Mr. Bradford, you entered this marriage under false pretenses, maintained it through deception, and attempted to exit it through theft. You are entitled to nothing. The gavel falls, and it's over. Outside the courthouse, journalists swarm. I give a brief statement through David. I hope this case demonstrates that women have the right to protect what they've built, to refuse to be used, and to determine the fate of their own property. Marriage should be partnership, not parasitism. Marcus tries to approach me as I'm leaving, but security stops him. I can see him trying to say something, his mouth moving, but I turn away. There's nothing left to say to a man who called me dead. A month later, I purchase a new property, a modern townhouse in the city, smaller than the demolished mansion, but entirely mine in ways that old house never was. No memories of Marcus, no ghosts of who I pretended to be. Lisa helps me move in, and we open champagne on the rooftop terrace. To new beginnings, she says, raising her glass. To being visible, I counter. We drink and watch the sun set over the city I've called home for 20 years. Somewhere out there, Marcus is starting over with nothing. I don't feel guilty about that. Actions have consequences, and he earned every bit of his. My phone buzzes. It's an email from Torres. Thought you'd want to know. Marcus Bradford was terminated from his job today. Apparently, the company didn't appreciate the publicity from the trial. He's listing his car for sale online. Seems like he's struggling. I don't respond. His struggles aren't my concern anymore. That evening, I sit at my new desk in my new home office and open my laptop. Sentinel Solutions needs attention. I've been so focused on the divorce that I've let some contracts slip. Time to rebuild that focus, to remember why I created this company in the first place. But first, I allow myself one final thought about Marcus. I hope someday he understands that I didn't destroy him. I simply refused to be destroyed by him. There's a difference. And then I let him go completely. One more piece of debris cleared from my foundation. The next morning, I wake to find another wave of media attention. Apparently, Judge Moreno's decision has sparked renewed debate about property rights in marriage and financial transparency. I'm being asked to speak at a conference for women in business about protecting assets and recognizing financial abuse. I accept the invitation, not because I want attention, but because maybe my experience can help others avoid the same mistakes. Maybe visibility isn't just about protecting myself. Maybe it's about helping others see clearly, too. Lisa asks me over lunch, "Do you regret it? Any of it? The house? The publicity? The trial?" I think about this carefully. I regret believing Marcus was someone he wasn't. I regret the 7 years I spent being smaller than I am. But the demolition? The trial? No. I needed to be clear about boundaries, about consequences. Sometimes you have to destroy something completely before you can build something real. What's next for you? I'm going to expand Sentinel Solutions. I'm going to speak at that conference. I'm going to live out loud instead of hiding. I pause. And I'm never going to let anyone make me feel dead again. We finish our lunch, and I drive back to my townhouse feeling lighter than I have in years. The past is demolished, cleared away completely. Ahead is nothing but open space, ready for whatever I choose to build. 6 months after the trial, I'm standing in front of 300 women at the National Women in Business Conference. The auditorium is packed, and I can feel the weight of their attention as I step up to the microphone. "My name is Elena Chen," I begin. "And 6 months ago, I demolished my $1 million home because my husband called me dead." The room is absolutely silent. But that's not really what this story is about. It's about invisibility, the kind women choose when they think it will protect them. For 12 years, I hid a $43 million company from the world, including from my husband, because I thought staying small would keep me safe. I can see women nodding, recognizing themselves in my words. It didn't keep me safe. It just made it easier for someone to use me. Today, I want to talk about what happened when I finally chose to be visible, and what I've learned about power, protection, and rebuilding. The speech lasts 40 minutes. I talk about financial literacy, about protecting assets, about recognizing the warning signs of financial abuse. I share the specifics of how I structured Sentinel Solutions to remain separate property, how I documented everything, how I prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. But mostly, I talk about the cost of invisibility. When you hide who you are to make someone else comfortable, you're not protecting yourself, I say. You're just making it easier for them to pretend you don't matter. The demolition wasn't about revenge. It was about refusing to stay invisible. The standing ovation lasts 3 minutes. Afterward, dozens of women line up to talk to me. They share their own stories, husbands who controlled finances, partners who undermined their businesses, men who made them feel small for being successful. One woman, probably in her 50s, grips my hand tightly. "I've been hiding a successful consulting practice from my husband for 8 years. He thinks I make $30,000 a year. I actually make $300,000. I've been terrified to tell him." "Why?" I ask gently. "Because he'll want it. He'll expect it. He'll make it about him." "Then maybe it's time to ask yourself if you want to spend the rest of your life lying about who you are to someone who can't celebrate your success. She starts crying. I don't know how to stop being invisible. Start small, I tell her. One truth at a time. And document everything. If he can't handle your success, better to know now than in another 8 years. This conversation repeats itself a dozen times that day. Each woman carrying the weight of her own invisibility. Each one wondering if it's safe to be seen. I give them all the same advice. Visibility is scary, but invisibility is deadly. That evening, I'm having dinner with Lisa at my favorite restaurant when my phone rings. It's an unknown number, but something makes me answer. Elena? A man's voice, unfamiliar. This is Dr. Richard Vance. I'm calling from Mercy General Hospital. Your ex-husband, Marcus Bradford, listed you as his emergency contact. He's been admitted. My first instinct is to hang up. Marcus isn't my problem anymore. But something in the doctor's tone stops me. What happened? He attempted suicide this afternoon. He's stable now, but he's asking for you. The words hit me like cold water. I'm not his wife anymore. We've been divorced for 6 months. I understand, but he's quite insistent. He says he needs to talk to you. You're under no obligation, of course, but I'll be there in 20 minutes. Lisa looks at me in shock as I end the call. Please tell me you're not going to see him. He tried to kill himself, Lisa. That's not your fault. That's not your responsibility. I know, but I need to hear what he has to say. I need to close this door completely. The drive to the hospital feels surreal. Part of me is angry. Angry that Marcus would try to pull me back into his orbit. Angry that even now he's making his problems mine. But another part feels something more complicated. Not guilt, exactly, but a kind of heavy sadness. Marcus is in a private room, looking smaller and older than I remember from the courtroom. His wrists are bandaged, and there's a hollow look in his eyes that wasn't there before. Elena, he says when he sees me. You came. The doctor said you asked for me. I didn't think you would, after everything. I pull a chair to his bedside but keep my distance. What happened, Marcus? I lost everything. My job, my apartment, my friends. Whitney's engaged to someone else, some tech millionaire she met 2 weeks after she left me. My parents won't return my calls because of the shame. I'm 43 years old, living in my car, and I couldn't see a way forward. So you tried to end it. I took pills. A lot of pills. But I guess I called 911 at some point. I don't really remember. He looks at me with those hollow eyes. I've had a lot of time to think, Elena, about what I did, about who I was. Marcus, let me say this. Please. His voice cracks. I destroyed us. Not you. Me. I was so insecure about your success, so threatened by your competence that I tried to take what was yours instead of building something of my own. I cheated because it made me feel powerful. I stole because I was trying to prove I could provide something. And I planned to take your business because I convinced myself I deserved it for putting up with being your husband. The words hang in the air between us. Putting up with being my husband, I repeat. Is that really how you saw our marriage? That's how I saw myself. As less than you. And instead of dealing with that, I tried to make you less than me. I called you old because I was terrified of aging. I called you dead because I felt dead inside. And I destroyed our marriage because I couldn't stand seeing you be so much more than I could ever be. I sit back in the chair, processing this. It's the most honest Marcus has been in 7 years. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm done lying. To you, to myself, to everyone. I've been in therapy since the trial. Group therapy for men who financially abuse their partners. That's what I did, Elena. I abused you. I took your money, your trust, your love, and I used it all to feed my own ego. And then I tried to make you the villain for refusing to keep enabling me. Tears streamed down his face. The demolition. I get it now. I couldn't understand it at first. I thought you were crazy, cruel. But you weren't destroying the house. You were destroying the lie. The life I forced us to live where I got to feel big by making you small. Marcus, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just needed you to know that I finally see what I did. And I'm sorry. I'm so deeply, profoundly sorry. We sit in silence for a long moment. Part of me wants to stay angry, to hold on to the righteous fury that got me through the demolition and the trial. But looking at this broken man in a hospital bed, I realize anger is just another kind of weight I don't need to carry. I forgive you, I say quietly. Not because you deserve it, but because I'm done letting you take up space in my head. I'm done being defined by what you did to me. What you did with the house, he continues. Everyone thought you were crazy. But you were the sanest person in the whole situation. You saw clearly what needed to happen, and you did it without hesitation. I wish I'd had that kind of clarity, that kind of courage. Courage would have been being honest with me from the start. Courage would have been dealing with your insecurity instead of making it my problem. You're right. I was a coward. I'm still a coward, but I'm trying to be less of one. A nurse comes in to check Marcus's vitals, and I use the interruption to stand. I need to go. Elena, wait. He struggles to sit up straighter. There's something else. Something you should know. I pause at the door. Whitney's engaged to someone, Greg Daniels. He owns a tech company called Data Flow Solutions. The name means nothing to me. So? He's one of your competitors. Whitney's been feeding him information about Sentinel Solutions. She got access to my laptop before she left, found some of your business documents I'd photographed. I didn't know she was going to use them, I swear, but cold fury washes over me. What kind of information? Client lists, pricing structures, some proprietary security protocols. I don't know exactly what she took. I'm sorry, Elena. I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner, but I was afraid I'd press charges. Yes. I pull out my phone and call David immediately. We have a corporate espionage problem. I need you to contact our IT security team right now. I give him the quick details while Marcus watches miserably from his bed. When I hang up, Marcus is crying again. I've ruined everything. Everything I touch turns to poison. You made choices, I say firmly. Bad ones. But Marcus, you're still alive. You still have the chance to make better choices. Get therapy. Real therapy, not just the court-ordered kind. Face what you did instead of running from it. Build something instead of taking from others. How do I even start? The same way I did after you betrayed me. One decision at a time, one honest moment after another. And Marcus, stay away from women who have what you want. Find someone you can build with as an equal. He nods, wiping his eyes. Thank you for coming. For listening. You didn't have to. No, I didn't. But I needed to close this chapter completely. I hope you find a way forward. I really do. But it can't involve me. I leave without looking back. In the parking lot, Lisa is waiting in her car. I'd texted her to meet me. I climb into the passenger seat and sit there for a moment, processing everything. Are you okay? She asks. Whitney Pierce stole proprietary information from Sentinel Solutions and gave it to a competitor. Jesus, what are you gonna do? Bury them both. The next morning, I'm in David's office with my entire legal team and Sentinel's head of IT security, a brilliant woman named Rachel Kim who I trust implicitly. The breach is extensive, Rachel reports, her expression grim. Pierce accessed Bradford's laptop and photographed documents containing client information, pricing models, and 3 proprietary security protocols we've been developing for the past 2 years. How did Marcus have access to those documents? That's the interesting part. He didn't, not legitimately, but you sometimes worked from home on your personal laptop, which was on the same home network as his devices. He installed spyware on the router about 9 months ago. Everything you did on your home network was being logged. The violation feels worse than the affair somehow. Can we prove it? Absolutely. The spyware is still active. We have complete records of when it was installed and every piece of data it captured. This is textbook corporate espionage. David leans forward. Elena, with this evidence, we can pursue criminal charges against both Bradford and Pierce. We're talking about federal crimes, unauthorized access to computer systems, theft of trade secrets. They could both face significant prison time. I think about Marcus in that hospital bed, broken and suicidal. Then I think about Whitney. Young, calculating Whitney who saw an opportunity and took it without conscience. Marcus stays out of it, I say. He's already destroyed. But Whitney and this Greg Daniels, I want them prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Marcus was part of the theft. Marcus was a fool who didn't even understand what he was stealing. Whitney knew exactly what she was doing. She targeted him to get to me. She's the real criminal here. David exchanges glances with the team. That's unusually merciful of you. It's not mercy. It's strategy. Marcus is already ruined and remorseful. Whitney is dangerous and has no conscience. I want my energy focused on the actual threat. Over the next 2 weeks, we build an airtight case. Rachel traces every document Whitney accessed, every file she transferred, every conversation she had with Daniels about using our proprietary information. We discovered Dataflow Solutions has been using our security protocols in their pitches to our potential clients, undercutting our prices because they didn't have to invest in development. The federal investigation moves quickly once we present our evidence. FBI agents execute search warrants at Dataflow Solutions and Whitney's apartment. What they find confirms everything. Correspondence between Whitney and Daniels, dating back to when she was still with Marcus. Explicit discussions about using stolen information. Even a congratulatory email from Daniels after she successfully obtained our protocol documentation. Whitney is arrested on a Tuesday morning at the coffee shop where she and Daniels often met. The local news covers it extensively. Woman arrested for corporate espionage in romance gone wrong case. The story goes viral again, but this time the narrative is different. This time I'm not the scorned wife who demolished her house. I'm the savvy businesswoman who protected her empire. The contrast between the two moments becomes a teaching point in business schools. Emotional response versus strategic response. Both valid in their contexts. Daniels tries to claim he didn't know the information was stolen, that Whitney told him she'd developed the protocols herself. But the evidence contradicts him at every turn. He's charged as a co-conspirator. Their trial is scheduled for 8 months out. David assures me the case is solid, that both will likely face prison time and certainly civil penalties that will bankrupt Dataflow Solutions. You've won, he tells me over lunch after the arraignment. Completely. Marcus is ruined, Whitney is facing federal charges, and Sentinel Solutions is stronger than ever. How does it feel? I consider this. Empty, kind of. I thought victory would feel different. That's normal. Revenge never tastes as sweet as we imagine it will. It wasn't revenge with Whitney. It was protection. Maybe, but demolishing the house, that was revenge, pure and simple. No, I correct him. That was liberation. That evening, I'm working late at Sentinel's headquarters, a glass tower downtown that serves as our public face, while I continue to maintain my privacy as owner. My assistant interrupts with an unexpected message. There's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's about Marcus Bradford. My first instinct is to refuse, but curiosity wins. Send her in. The woman who enters is in her late 20s, professionally dressed, with an earnest expression that immediately reminds me of myself at that age. She introduces herself as Jennifer Matsuda. I'm Marcus's therapist, she explains. I know this is highly irregular, but Marcus signed a release allowing me to speak with you. He thought you should know about his progress. Why would I want to know about his progress? Because according to Marcus, you're the only person who told him he could still build a life. He's latched onto that idea. It's keeping him alive. I gesture for her to sit. I'm listening. Marcus has been in intensive therapy since his suicide attempt. He's diagnosed with severe depression and what we call narcissistic vulnerability, a pattern of grandiosity covering deep insecurity. He spent his whole life trying to prove he was significant, and when he couldn't, he tried to diminish those around him instead. I gathered that what you may not know is that he's been working minimum wage jobs, 3 of them, to pay off the debt he accumulated. He's living in a halfway house, attending daily group therapy, and volunteering at a financial literacy nonprofit teaching people how to avoid the mistakes he made. Despite myself, I'm impressed. That's good. I'm glad he's taking responsibility. He wanted you to know he's not asking for anything. Not forgiveness, not contact, not help. Just that he's trying to become someone who deserves the chance you gave him. After she leaves, I sit in my office watching the city lights flicker to life below. Marcus's redemption isn't my responsibility, isn't my victory or loss. But knowing he's trying, actually trying, lifts something I didn't know I was still carrying. 6 months later, I'm standing in the empty lot where my house once stood. The land sold 2 weeks ago to a developer who's planning to build an eco-friendly community home. I made $4 million on the sale, $1 million more than the house was worth. Lisa stands beside me, both of us looking at the bare earth. Do you regret it? She asks. Not for the first time. No, I say, and I mean it. This needed to happen exactly this way. I needed to prove to myself that I could destroy something I loved if it was poisoning me. I needed to know I was strong enough to choose myself. You could have just divorced him. I tried being invisible for years, Lisa. It almost destroyed me. The demolition was loud, public, impossible to ignore. It announced to the world, and to myself, that I was done accepting less than I deserved. My phone buzzes. It's a news alert. Whitney Pierce has pleaded guilty to corporate espionage in exchange for a reduced sentence of 4 years in federal prison. Daniels is fighting the charges, but his company has filed for bankruptcy under the weight of our civil suit. I feel nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, just a kind of neutral acknowledgement that justice has been served. What's next for you? Lisa asks. Sentinel Solutions is expanding into Asia. I'm finally stepping out of the shadows, doing interviews, speaking publicly about the company. I've hired a brand new management team, all women who understand what it means to build something from nothing. And personally, I smile. I'm dating, actually. A professor from the university. Teaches philosophy. He knows exactly who I am and what I'm worth, and he thinks it's fascinating rather than threatening. That's a low bar. Maybe, but it's a start. I'm learning to be visible in relationships too, not just in business. It's harder than I expected. We stand there a few more minutes, saying goodbye to what was. Then we walk back to our cars, ready for what comes next. 3 years after the demolition, I'm featured on the cover of Forbes. The CEO who demolished her past, Elena Chen's rise from invisibility to industry leader. The article tells the whole story. Sentinel Solutions' growth from a hidden empire to a publicly celebrated tech leader. My journey from invisible wife to visible entrepreneur. And yes, the demolition that started it all. The journalist asks me if I'd do anything differently. I'd have been visible from the start, I say. I'd have trusted that the right person would celebrate my success instead of trying to steal it. But I had to learn that lesson the hard way. And the house? Any regrets? None. That demolition taught me the most important lesson of my life. Sometimes you have to destroy everything to discover what actually matters. The house wasn't what mattered. My company wasn't even what mattered. What mattered was learning to value myself enough to refuse to be invisible. The article goes viral, sparking another wave of conversations about women in business, financial abuse, and the power of dramatic action. I receive thousands of messages from women who say my story helped them find their own courage. But the message that means the most comes from an unexpected source. Marcus. He sends it through his therapist, respecting the boundary I set years ago. It's simple. Thank you for showing me that destruction can be an act of creation. I'm building a life I'm not ashamed of. I hope you're proud of yours. I am proud. Fiercely, completely proud. Not of what I destroyed, but of what I refused to let destroy me. On the 4-year anniversary of the demolition, I drive past the lot one final time. The eco-community is finished now. Beautiful, sustainable homes where families are building new lives. Something good grew from the rubble. I think about the woman I was, standing in that bedroom while Marcus called her dead. I think about her invisibility, her fear, her certainty that staying small would keep her safe. She was wrong, but she learned. And in learning, she became someone new. That evening, I'm having dinner with David, Lisa, and my boyfriend Marcus. Yes, I'm dating another Marcus, which Lisa finds hilarious, when David raises his glass. To Elena, he says, who taught us all that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to stay in a structure that's crushing you. Even if that structure is $1 million house, Lisa adds. Especially then, I say. We drink, and I feel the weight of the past finally, completely lift. I'm not the woman who demolished her house. I'm the woman who refused to let her house define her. I'm not the invisible wife. I'm not the scorned ex-wife. I'm not even the victorious CEO. I'm just Elena, visible, powerful, free. Building a life on solid ground instead of in the shadows, creating rather than hiding. Choosing myself every single day without apology. The house is gone. The marriage is gone. The invisibility is gone. And I've never been more completely, authentically alive. Later that night, I stand on my townhouse balcony watching the city breathe below me. Somewhere out there, Marcus, the first Marcus, is rebuilding his life one honest choice at a time. Whitney is in prison, learning that consequences are real. Daniels is bankrupt and disgraced. And I am here, exactly where I chose to be. My phone rings. It's a call from Tokyo. Our new Asian office has questions about a major contract. I answer with confidence, no longer hiding who I am or what I've built. "This is Elena Chen," I say. "How can I help?" And in those 5 words, I hear everything I've become. Not invisible, not small, not dead, just completely, powerfully, undeniably alive. The demolition was never about destroying a house. It was about demolishing the lie that I had to be small to be loved, that I had to hide to be safe, that my power was something to apologize for. I don't apologize anymore. I don't hide anymore. I don't wait for permission to take up space anymore. I simply exist, fully and unapologetically, in a life I built from the rubble of what needed to fall. And that, I've learned, is the sweetest revenge of all. Living well, living loudly, living visibly. The old Marcus told me I was dead. He was wrong. I've never been more alive. The end. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.